Welcome to the Green Building Show, where we investigate green design and building trends throughout Australia.
This week we continue our investigation into colour. I'll be speaking with Di Swinbourne, the head of colour at Sydney's Design School, and she'll explain how a colour trend is developed, how they evolved, and she'll also give us some handy tips on using colour throughout our own home. And in this week's Australian Style, we dig into Lighthome's archives to bring you one of our most popular podcasts ever. Lighthome's Maria Tan will sit down with Simone Gillespie, who brings us her take on colour trends. I'm here today with Di Swinbourne. She's the head of colour at Sydney's Design School. Thanks for being with us, Di.
You're welcome, Carlos. Nice to be here.
Great. So we're talking about design trends and particularly colour trends for 2013.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of a rundown of how a trend really evolves and how a trend is developed?
Yeah, well, a trend reflects the current spirit of the times, and so whatever is happening with the world at that time, it's reflected in how we dress and how we decorate. So, for instance, we are still being influenced by trends that started in the 50s, like casual living, with open plan houses and large picture windows and the kitchen as the centre of the house. That all came out of the 50s and has evolved from that and from the technologies of the 50s. And then luxury living came from the 90s with all the wealth that we had in the 90s, with women paying thousands for designer bags. And then we went into luxury living phase with Baroque-inspired wallpapers and chandeliers and Philippe Stark Louis Ghost chairs. And so that has evolved too. And now we're being influenced by the GFC, and so we're in a period of recession. And that's the spirit of the times, and it's led to us recycling and using pre-loved items and honouring the things that are important to us and cocooning ourselves with family photos and the things that are important to us. So yeah, trends are important to us, they evolve, and they represent how we feel about things at the time.
Okay, and how does this spirit of the time, how does that influence colour choices and colour palettes throughout a house?
Okay, well that's a good question. You would think in a times of recession or economic downturn that we'd go for safe colours, but in fact the reverse is true. We actually are looking for brights, and so we're actually featuring brights more than we have for a long, long time. So we still might have our neutrals, and grey is still the big neutral, and black and white. But we're bringing in lots of brights, lots of pops of colour. So it might just be putting 2 chairs at the end of a dining room table that are brights in a room, that might be a fuchsia or a neon green, and that could be enough to brighten the whole room. Or it could be actually featuring a whole range of brights from different parts of the colour wheel. Some might be pastels, some might be more full colour, full chroma, but they just make us feel good, and that's what we're wanting, that's what we're looking for right now, is colour that makes us feel good.
All right, great. And for someone who wants to create a new colour palette throughout their own home, how do they go about it? Do they look in the magazine for the latest trends, or can they develop their own colour palette? How does it work?
Well, trends are a guide, but you don't want to be led by trends, and so you need to pick colours that actually reflect who you are and your favourite colours. So there's a couple of things that you could do. You might walk through your house and just see what colours are there that you are naturally being drawn to, and they will tell you what your natural palette is, and you then work from that. Or you might look at your wardrobe, because we tend to surround ourselves with colours that actually reflect our complexion, that look good with our natural colouring. So people who are very dark-haired and dark-skinned tend to like black and white and splashes of red and hot colours, whereas people who are blonde and blue-eyed tend to go for greyed colours, more subtle colours. So look for that. And I've got a technique here that works really well, that I use a lot with students, and it seems to really work, and that is where you pull out a whole lot of images. Say go through some magazines, some great graphic magazines, not interior magazines, but something like National Geographic or even Women's Weekly will do, but wallpapers and magazines that are really beautifully glossy, and pull out, say, 6 images where you're attracted to the colours, and then splice them together. Just tear them, shred them, cut them without any idea of art, and just overlap them and paste them down, and do it all in like 3 to 5 minutes, and then walk into your room, into your space, and have a look at what you've created and see if there's a little section, it might just be a tiny part of that, where you can see that palette in that room, and study that section and pull out exactly precisely the colours that you've used there. You might have white walls and they may just be the jewels of colour that are furnishings and pillows and things like that, and then bring in woods and neutrals and things to ground it. With pops of colour, your neutrals are really important to ground them, so whites and blacks and greys and wood tones and all the surfaces that we use, they ground the colours that we pick. But that's a nice way of pulling out a colour palette that's a little bit quirky and a little bit non-prescriptive. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And when it comes to creating a colour palette, Di, is there some rules for colour? I mean, do you need to know the rules before you break them, or I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and designers all differ on that one. Abigail Ahern, who's just been visiting Australia, is a great advocate of breaking the rules, but in actual fact, she doesn't. She has her own set of rules, and they're playing with dimensions and doing oversizing and being really bold with colour. But no, there are a few things, like if you want to create unity in a home, then you might take your favourite colour and use it boldly in an area where you pass through, where you don't linger for too long. So it could be a foyer or it could be a middle hallway, and have fun with it there. So say it's a turquoise, put full-on turquoise in your foyer, but then don't feel that you've got to repeat it right throughout the house to have exactly like that, to have a story. Pick it up in other ways, like you might have a painting in a bedroom that's just has a tiny splash of turquoise in it. But the other colours there could be more navy blue. You could have a lounge that's in an inky blue. So it's from the blue family, but it's not turquoise. But then you might have just one chair that's in a teal blue, that's again not turquoise, but is related to it. So you're repeating the sense of that colour without being too precise. We're in a definite era of mismatching, but we've become more sophisticated with it, and that's a nice way of being, having unity in a house, but also having a sense of slight mismatching that's quite sophisticated, and that works really well.
Great. Okay, fantastic. And what do you think would be, if you could give one piece of walkaway advice to someone who's really hungry for some colour ideas, and they perhaps don't know as much as obviously someone with expertise like yourself, what do you think would be the key takeaway?
Wow, I don't know where to start with that, but I guess you've got to have balance with colour. So whatever direction you're going in, don't just have it all full on in one room. You need to have that sense of colour repeated throughout, or textures or whatever. So to create unity, you need to have balance. So for instance, you might have the one floor throughout the house, which is great because it adds unity to the house and that allows you to play from that. Mm-hmm. If you do change to a carpet, keep it in a similar tone so you're not breaking up the space. Maybe the same ceiling colour throughout, the same trim colours throughout. But that doesn't mean you can't have a dark ceiling or a colourful ceiling. But say, for instance, you have a black ceiling in here, then you might repeat it with, say, a black kitchen, or a black utility, a wardrobe or something, or maybe a black sofa. So you've got a sense of repetition, but it doesn't have to be on the same item. So just think in terms of your space as being a whole and being unified, and whatever direction you take, whatever style you've got, repeat that style in different ways throughout the space.
Fantastic. Di Swinbourne, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Carlos.
We've already heard from two colour experts, Vic. Anything more to add?
Carlos has been talking about how you can have just one feature piece that can just really bring a room to light. So just going to look at a few simple ones, starting with these gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous yellow lights from Great Dane, greatdanefurniture.com. They're just kind of a whole 60s retro look, which is fab. Also the very classic butter stool from Australian designers, designed by them. It's $319, so it's not cheap, but it's super cool, and it's made of 70% recycled milk containers. Fab. You don't have to get really expensive to have a feature piece in your room. I personally think lounge chairs, like beach chairs, are really cool. And these ones are $39.95 from oo.com.au. Also from oo, ridiculously cheap, is this red couch for $199. Fab. Otherwise you get a throw, always a big fan of a throw. This one's from Riva at textura.com.au. Or, amazing kind of feature piece, a traffic light. Just scour old junkyards and old op shops and get a traffic light.
I'm Maria Tan, and joining us today is interior designer Simone Gillespie from Essence Interiors, who'll be sharing her insights on the latest colour trends for 2012. Welcome, Simone. So tell us, Simone, what colours are really coming into season this year?
Okay, well this year we're having quite a change from what has been in the past, where subdued colours have been popular over the last couple of years, and now we're seeing a return to bright colour and vivid colour in lots of different exciting hues. So what we're seeing now is instead of neutrals being of a brown tone, we are now seeing a neutral background in hues of grey. So from very, very light grey through to dark grey, this forms the background for brighter colours to take the centre stage. So in the years just gone by, where we're using a lot of brown neutrals as our background, like tan and taupe and beige and those sorts of colours, on the Dulux fan deck there would be colours like, for example, hog's bristle, which was a very popular colour for neutral walls in the last couple of years. But now we're moving towards the greys. Like, for example, the Dulux colour white duck is a greyish neutral colour. And they work really, really well with citrus tones, and they are going to be huge over the next season. Anything of a citrus nature that reminds you of limes, lemons, oranges, anything that is yellow, in that range of yellow through to limey greens, and then your oranges through to red oranges and like a blood grapefruit colour. So citrus colours are going to be really huge, and they go very well with the with the dark grey background or a light grey background. And I've sent through a couple of pictures that would show that. They really seem to pop right out of the picture at you. These vivid yellows and oranges and beautiful lime greens. So combining those with the greys, that is going to be the major trend.
Alrighty, well, thanks very much for joining us today, Simone.
Pleasure. I love to talk about colour. It's my life.
Okay. And that was interior design expert Simone Gillespie from Essence Interiors with all the latest on colour trends for 2012.